The office lights hummed overhead, throwing a pale glow over my desk. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, but I was still here, bent over spreadsheets and draft slides like some overworked grad student. The clock on my monitor said 11:47 p.m. My stomach growled, but the only thing in my system was a stale cup of coffee and a granola bar I'd half eaten 3 hours ago. That was life at Brightwave Digital, New York's rising star in the tech marketing world. You didn't just show up, you clawed your way through, or the company chewed you up and spat you out. I wasn't going to be chewed. Not me. Still here, Maddie, a voice had asked earlier when the last of my coworkers packed up for the subway. I just waved them off, forcing a smile. Yeah, just polishing for tomorrow. Truth was, I was polishing for every tomorrow. The director of strategy role was opening soon. Ethan Rhodes, my boss, had teased it in a meeting like dangling meat over wolves. And I wanted it. I'd earned it after 8 years of backbreaking campaigns, rescuing impossible accounts, and mentoring junior staff who now barely remembered my name. Ethan, just thinking of him made my jaw tighten. Tall, slick, silver hair perfectly styled, with a voice that dripped authority. He had the board eating from his hand, but those of us who worked under him knew the truth. He survived off our ideas, our labor. He was the kind of man who'd let you kill yourself fixing a project, then slap his name on it, and somehow still get applause. Then there was Clara Hartman, my closest friend at the office. Clara charmed clients over cocktails. We balanced each other out, or so I believed. She'd been my sounding board for years, the person I trusted with my frustrations about Ethan, the one who promised, "Don't worry, Maddie, when you get promoted, I'll throw you the biggest party." I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But my gut had been restless lately. Clara's questions about my projects had become a little too pointed. So, what numbers are you showing for Q2? Just curious. Or, can I peek at your pitch outline? I just love the way you phrase things. They seemed harmless. Friends help friends, right? Still, something about the way she asked left a sour taste. My phone buzzed on the desk, snapping me out of my thoughts. A text from Mom. "Are you still working this late? Maddie, no job is worth losing yourself. You could always come back to Ohio. Your old room is waiting." I sighed. Mom didn't understand. Going home meant failure. It meant admitting that the city had beaten me, that Ethan had won, that all those years of clawing upward had been pointless. No, I couldn't go back. Not yet. Another notification slid across the screen. This one from Ryan, my ex. "Still chasing promotions that don't matter? You'll burn out before you ever win. Same Maddie, different desk." I deleted it without replying, but his words gnawed at me like acid. Same Maddie, different desk. Was that what I was? Always working harder, trusting people I shouldn't, and ending up alone with cold coffee? I rubbed my temples, pushing the thought away. No, this was different. I was smarter now. I knew the game. I pulled the final slide into place, saved the deck, and whispered to myself, "This is it, my shot." The hunger in my chest was real, raw, a mix of ambition and desperation, the kind that made you work till midnight with nothing but determination, holding you upright, the kind that made you believe, despite the doubters, the liars, and the snakes in suits, that you could still win. I shut down the monitor, grabbed my coat, and glanced once more at the darkened office. The city lights blinked through the windows, sharp and merciless. Tomorrow would be the start of something bigger. I just didn't know yet that Ethan already had a plan to turn my dream into a trap. Ethan called an all-hands strategy session on a Monday morning. That should have been my first red flag. Nothing good ever came out of a Monday morning meeting. The conference room buzzed with chatter as people slid into seats, balancing coffees and laptops. Clara plopped down beside me, her perfume sugary sweet, her smile too wide. Big day, she whispered, nudging my elbow. You ready? Ready for what? I asked, brows knitting. She tilted her head toward Ethan, who was already at the head of the table, crisp, navy suit, tie perfectly knotted. He looked like a politician gearing up for a victory speech. All right, team, Ethan said, his voice cutting through the room like polished steel. Bright Wave is entering a new quarter, and expectations are higher than ever, which means we're raising the bar internally, too. I felt my pulse quicken. This was it, the setup for the director role. Ethan paced slowly, letting suspense build. The board has asked me to identify a candidate for director of strategy, someone who isn't afraid of impossible odds. His eyes landed on me. I sat taller, heat crawling up my neck. Someone hungry, relentless. My breath caught. For a second, I imagined it, the title on my email signature, the respect in meetings, the years of grinding finally paying off. Then Ethan dropped the hammer. The candidate will need to deliver something extraordinary, a 300% revenue increase on our underperforming accounts by the end of this quarter. The room went still. I swear I heard someone choke on their latte. 3 months, triple revenue on accounts that were practically corpses. It wasn't just difficult, it was career suicide. I opened my mouth. Sir, with respect, that's challenging. Ethan cut me off smoothly. Yes, but possible. And we need someone who doesn't shy away from impossible. Someone who will prove they deserve this promotion. His eyes pinned me again, and this time there was a glint I didn't like, a trap disguised as opportunity. Clara leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. You can do this, Maddie. He's basically handing it to you. Handing me poison, more like. I forced a tight smile and nodded even as my stomach twisted. Of course, I said aloud. My voice was steady, though my insides weren't. I'll take it on. Ethan's smirk widened, smug and satisfied. Excellent. We'll all be watching. The meeting continued, but I barely heard the rest. My pen scratched meaningless doodles across my notebook as my brain screamed. It's impossible. He wants me to fail. Afterward, Clara hooked her arm through mine. Congratulations. This is huge. Yeah, huge. My voice was flat. You always want a director, she reminded me. This is your shot. And honestly, you're the only one who could maybe even pull it off. Her words should have felt supportive. Instead, they felt like gasoline on a fire I couldn't control. I smiled anyway, because that's what you do when your supposed friend roots for you while secretly waiting for you to burn. As I walked back to my desk, I caught Ethan watching me from his office doorway. Not encouragement, not pride, just that cold little smirk, like he was already drafting my obituary. And in that moment, I knew the promotion wasn't a prize. It was a loaded gun, placed neatly in my hands. All Ethan had to do was wait for me to pull the trigger on myself. I lived in the office that quarter. The janitor started nodding at me like we were co-workers. The security guard offered me coffee once at midnight because he saw me stumbling toward the elevators, half asleep, files clutched against my chest like a lifeline. I woke up every morning with my laptop still open beside me, spreadsheets glowing in the dark like they were mocking me. Revenue targets, projections, cost per click, numbers swirling until I saw them in my dreams. And still, they weren't enough. Triple revenue on failing accounts. It was a math problem that shouldn't exist, like asking someone to turn pennies into gold bars overnight. But I kept at it, running scenario after scenario, tearing down campaigns, and rebuilding them. My body was falling apart, but my pride wouldn't let me stop. One night, after a 14-hour marathon, I found Clara sitting on my desk when I returned from the break room. She held one of my printed reports in her manicured hand. Just curious, she said lightly, how are you tracking the Q2 accounts? I mean, wow, this is complicated. I snatched the pages back, too quickly. It's under control. Her eyes flickered, and for a second I thought I saw it, that glimmer of something sharp under all the sugar. But then she smiled and said, of course it is. If anyone can do the impossible, it's you. She left, heels clicking down the hall, and my gut twisted. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But every word from her lips felt like a test I didn't know the answers to. Later that week, Ryan texted again. Still chasing ghosts? You never change, Maddie. Work until you're dead, then wonder why nobody stayed. I threw my phone across the couch, heart pounding. Why did I even keep his number? Why did I let his voice echo in my head when I was already drowning? That same night, while everyone else went home, I was still in the office staring at a campaign dashboard that wouldn't cooperate. My eyes blurred until I couldn't tell which numbers were up or down anymore. I rubbed them, groaning. Long night. I jumped. Janelle Pierce, the analyst 2 cubicles over. Quiet, sharp-eyed. One of those people you barely noticed until suddenly you did. She had her laptop tucked under her arm and a half-empty energy drink in her hand. Something like that, I muttered. She hesitated, then leaned over my shoulder to glance at my screen. Her brow furrowed. Wait, your campaign's actually improving. Look at this. I blinked. What? She tapped the screen, pointing out a spike I'd overlooked in my haze. Your conversions are trending up. If this holds, you're on track to beat projections for that account. Hope flared, hot and bright. Then it sputtered when I remembered Ethan. He wouldn't acknowledge it. He'd bury it, twist it, spin it into failure. Still, it mattered that someone saw. Thanks, I whispered. Janelle gave me a small, knowing smile. Don't let him break you. Some of us actually notice the work you do. She left before I could respond, leaving me staring at the glowing numbers with a lump in my throat. Maybe I wasn't completely drowning. Maybe there was still a way to claw out. But every time I closed my eyes, Ethan's smirk haunted me, patient, cruel, like he was already counting the days until I collapsed. It was a Thursday night when the ground finally cracked under me. I had just finished another 12-hour day when I ducked into the break room to microwave the sad remains of yesterday's pasta. The office was mostly empty, just the hum of machines and the faint echo of Clara's laugh from down the hall. I froze. Her voice drifted toward me, light and playful, carrying down the corridor like perfume. I crept closer, staying just out of sight. She's drowning, Ethan. You should see her face when you pile on more targets. It's almost funny. Clara's tone was sugar-laced, but the edge underneath, it was sharp as glass. Ethan chuckled. She'll never hit the numbers, but the board loves the idea that I'm pushing her hard. Makes me look ruthless and results-driven. And when she fails? Clara asked. She's finished, Ethan said simply. I could picture his smug grin without even seeing it, and I'll frame it as poor leadership under pressure. Termination's already in motion. Termination. My pulse roared in my ears. Clara giggled, low and mean. Guess that promotion will be open for someone else. Then, the sound of my fork clattering against the linoleum betrayed me. Their voices stopped. My chest seized as I darted back toward my desk, pasta forgotten, heart pounding like a drum in my throat. Back at my chair, I pulled open my email with trembling fingers. Sure enough, buried in a restricted folder, was a draft file Ethan hadn't hidden well enough. Performance review, Madison Cole. I clicked it open. Each page was a knife. Cherry-picked failures, twisted metrics, outright lies. Whole paragraphs claiming I'd missed deadlines I'd personally stayed up nights to meet. And there, at the end, a recommendation in bold. Termination recommended Q3. My vision blurred. 8 years. 8 years of late nights, canceled plans, birthdays missed, relationships sacrificed, for him to decide my career was disposable. For Clara, my so-called friend, to laugh about it behind my back. I shut the file before I could vomit. My hands shook so badly, I could barely close the laptop. That night, I walked home through the city streets in a haze, the neon lights smearing into streaks of color. I ended up in my apartment, curled on the couch, phone buzzing with Mom's missed calls. Her voicemail played in the dark. "Honey, maybe it's time to stop killing yourself for people who don't deserve you. Come home. You don't always have to fight." For a long time, I considered it, just walking away, letting them win. But then another memory rose, sharp as glass. My first job out of college. A female supervisor who had sabotaged my first big campaign to keep me from looking good in front of executives. I'd swallowed the betrayal, told myself to be the bigger person. I forgave her. She went on to climb the ladder while I spent years rebuilding my reputation. Never again. I sat up, wiping the tears from my face, rage settling into my bones like cement. Ethan thought he'd buried me. Clara thought she'd replaced me. They had no idea what I was about to do. The morning after I found the termination file, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even bother with makeup. I just walked into Brightwave's glass lobby with the kind of clarity I hadn't felt in months. Ethan and Clara thought they had already written my ending. What they didn't know was that I just found my beginning. Still, I needed proof. Rage wasn't enough. By mid-afternoon, I was back at my desk, pretending to grind away on campaigns while the ache in my chest pulsed steady. Clara breezed past, dropping a coffee on my desk with her signature smile. "Fuel for the superstar," she chirped. I forced a smile, the cup warm against my palms, though it may as well have been poison. "Thanks." She lingered a beat too long, eyes flicking over my screen. Then she was gone, heels clicking like gunshots down the hall. The second she turned the corner, a quiet voice rose behind me. "You shouldn't drink that." I spun. Janelle stood there, hands tucked into her hoodie pocket, gaze steady. "What do you mean?" She glanced toward the hall. Clara had vanished down. Let's just say she doesn't do anything without a reason, and she doesn't usually gift caffeine to anyone who's a threat. My chest tightened. "You think she's sabotaging you?" Janelle's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't think. I know." The words hit like a slap. My instinct was denial. Clara and I had been friends since my first month at Brightwave. She'd been there when I got promoted to senior associate. She bought me a necklace for my birthday last year. Friends didn't sabotage friends. Except the evidence was already burned into my memory. Her laugh in that hallway, Ethan's smug words. Termination in bold letters. I set the coffee down slowly. Then help me prove it. For the first time since I'd known her, Janelle's eyes lit with something like excitement. She slid into the empty chair beside me, lowering her voice. "What are you looking for?" "Anything," I whispered. "Anything that shows they've been twisting the numbers, hiding results, lying to the board." Her fingers tapped nervously against her laptop. "That's dangerous." "So is unemployment." I shot back. A silence stretched between us. Then she opened her laptop. "All right, but we do this carefully." The next week blurred into secret missions. By day, I played the obedient workhorse, churning out reports, nodding through Ethan's passive-aggressive feedback. By night, Janelle and I combed through Brightwave's database, untangling threads most people would have overlooked. She was a wizard with data. I didn't know how she got into some of the systems, and I didn't ask. What mattered was what we found. Hidden behind layers of permissions, Ethan had been rerouting revenue credit. Accounts I had revived, where conversions had spiked under my campaigns, were being logged under team performance or, in some cases, under Clara's name. Meanwhile, my accounts looked stagnant, sometimes even declining. On paper, it read like failure. In reality, I was carrying the load of 3 departments. I stared at one report until my eyes burned. He's stealing my work. Janelle's jaw tightened. Not stealing. Erasing. Big difference. My stomach lurched. Why would the system even allow this? Because Ethan has admin privileges. He can override reporting, reassign credit, bury anomalies. No one questions him. He's the golden boy. The rage I thought had settled in my bones reignited, hotter this time. Ethan hadn't just set me up to fail. He'd made sure failure was the only story anyone would see. Janelle leaned closer, her voice low. But there's a trail. People like him always leave one. He thinks he's smarter than the system, but databases don't lie. He's sloppy with timestamps. And Clara's fingerprints are all over this. 2, she's been signing off on supporting documentation that doesn't even exist. I gripped the edge of my desk. Proof. It was there if we stitched the threads together. Enough to flip the entire narrative. Enough to drag them both down. But a thought wormed into my brain. What if I go to HR? To the board? Janelle snorted softly. HR? They're his shield. The board? They eat out of his hand. No, Maddie, you don't just hand this over. You use it. Time it right. Her words sank in, heavy but true. Evidence wasn't enough. I needed leverage. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall, Ryan's old text still buzzing in my memory. Work until you're dead, then wonder why nobody stayed. He'd been cruel, but not wrong. For years, I believed survival meant loyalty. That if I worked hard enough, gave enough, people would see and reward me. But loyalty meant nothing to people like Ethan and Clara. They only understood power. So I started building mine. Weeks passed. My performance struggled. On paper, Ethan's smirk growing by the day. Clara grew bolder, dropping sly comments about stepping up if I couldn't handle the pressure. But Janelle and I were patient. Every night, we built a dossier. Screenshots, audit trails, discrepancies highlighted and cross-referenced. One Friday, Janelle slid a flash drive across my desk. It's all here. Every lie, every rerouted dollar. Enough to torch them both. I picked it up, heart hammering. The weight of it felt heavier than any title. Proof. But proof was only a weapon if wielded correctly. Drop it too soon, and Ethan would spin it as errors. Too late, and I'd already be gone. Timing was everything. That weekend, I sat with my mother at her kitchen table, laptop open, dossier pulled up. She scrolled slowly, her brows knitting tighter with each page. Finally, she looked at me. Sweetheart, this isn't just a case of bad leadership. This is fraud. The word hung between us. Fraud. She reached across, squeezing my hand. You could bury him with this. But the question is, do you want to? I thought of Clara's laugh, Ethan's smirk, years stolen from me. And my answer burned clear as fire. Yes, I whispered. I want to. By the time summer rolled in, the office air was heavy with 2 things: recycled air conditioning and Ethan's smugness. He strutted through the halls like he already wore the CEO's suit. His voice carried from conference rooms. All charm and bravado, the kind of tone that made outsiders believe he was the engine behind Brightwave's success. And Clara, She followed in his shadow like a glossy-haired echo, dropping barbed comments in my path. Rough numbers this quarter, Maddie, she'd purr in the break room, her hand grazing the coffee pot. Don't worry, not everyone's cut out for the fast lane. I stopped flinching. I stopped reacting. Let them think they'd broken me. Let them see the tired eyes, the quiet nods, the supposed defeat. Every time I pretended to crumble, they grew bolder. And every time they grew bolder, they revealed just a little more of their hand. Because while they were basking in their own brilliance, I was building a fuse line straight to the boardroom. Janelle and I met in odd places now. The storage closet behind finance, the parking garage stairwell, once even in the janitor's supply room that smelled like bleach and lemon cleaner. She carried her laptop everywhere, sleek and silver, a weapon disguised as a tool. Ethan's preparing his quarterly board presentation. She whispered one night, illuminated by the glow of her screen. End of next month. He's planning to showcase the team's performance, which is really your work rebranded. I leaned closer. Perfect. Her brows lifted. You want to hit him there? In front of the board. Exactly there, I said. My voice was calm, steady. If I go to HR, he buries it. If I go to the board privately, he spins it. But if I show them in real time, in the middle of his lies, he can't twist it. They'll see it unfold with their own eyes. Janelle hesitated, chewing her lip. That's high risk. If it goes wrong, then I'm fired anyway. I cut in. The only difference is I'll go down swinging instead of quietly. Her expression softened, respect flickering in her eyes. Okay, then we build the trap. The following weeks were a masterclass in double lives. By day, I was the obedient employee, typing notes in Ethan's meetings, presenting supporting data Clara shoved at me last minute, pretending not to notice when Ethan interrupted me to rephrase my own ideas. I kept my head low, my tone neutral, my body language submissive. By night, I became someone else. Janelle and I rehearsed the reveal like theater actors. She showed me how to navigate the reporting systems live, how to pull up time-stamped audit trails at a moment's notice. I practiced switching between dashboards quickly, highlighting discrepancies in plain language the board couldn't ignore. Every evening, I imagined Ethan's face when the mask cracked. One night, exhausted but wired, I muttered, I want him to feel it. Not just be exposed, but feel it the way he made me feel. Small, disposable. Janelle gave me a sharp look. Then don't gloat. Don't rub it in. Just lay the facts down, cold and sharp. Make them cut by themselves. Trust me, humiliation lands harder when it's unintentional. She was right. Meanwhile, Ethan's arrogance soared. At a Friday team meeting, he clicked through a flashy PowerPoint, peppered with innovative growth strategies that were word for word from a proposal I'd written weeks earlier. Clara handed him the slides like an obedient stagehand, her eyes flicking toward me with something between triumph and pity. And thanks to Clara's support, Ethan concluded smoothly, we've managed to stabilize underperforming accounts and prepare them for exponential growth in Q3. Applause followed. I clapped too, smiling just enough. Inside, my heart was ice. Because in his eagerness to flaunt stolen glory, Ethan had set the perfect stage for his downfall. A week later, Mom called during my walk home. The city glowed around me, heat rising off the pavement. You sound calmer, she said after a pause. Different. I am. Are you sure you're not just tired of fighting? I stopped at a crosswalk, watching headlights stream past. No, I'm done just surviving. I'm going to win, Mom. This time I'm going to win. Silence. Then her voice softened. Then burn bright, sweetheart. Don't hold back. Her words lit something inside me. As the board meeting approached, Tension coiled tighter each day. Clara's mask slipped more often now, impatience leaking through. Once she accidentally CC'd me on an email to Ethan. She's unraveling faster than expected. Soon you can move on this officially. Unraveling. If only she knew. Ethan, meanwhile, looked at me like I was already a ghost. We'll need you to put together supporting numbers for the presentation, he said casually one afternoon. Nothing complicated. Just make sure it looks consistent. I smiled sweetly. Of course. What he didn't know was that those very numbers would be his undoing. The night before the board meeting, Janelle and I sat in her apartment surrounded by pizza boxes and open laptops. The air buzzed with the hum of her computer fan. Are you ready for this? She asked finally, eyes searching mine. I exhaled, steadying myself. I've been ready since the night I found that file. She slid the flash drive toward me. Then tomorrow you bury him. I pocketed it, the weight grounding me. Tomorrow wasn't just about saving my job. It wasn't even about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my name, my work, my worth, about proving that no matter how carefully Ethan built his trap, I could climb out and set it on fire. And when I stepped into that boardroom, I promised myself one thing. I wouldn't leave quietly. I'd leave him in ashes. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt like the slowest ascent of my life. The walls gleamed chrome, reflecting back a face I barely recognized, calm, unreadable, dangerous. In my bag, the flash drive burned like a live coal. My weapon, my salvation. When the doors opened, I stepped into Brightwave's executive wing. The air smelled faintly of leather and expensive cologne. A receptionist glanced up, then back at her screen. To her, I was just another employee hustling past. To me, this was the last time I'd ever walk these halls as their victim. The boardroom was already filling. Tall glass windows framed the skyline, the morning sun painting everything in sharp relief. At the long mahogany table sat the directors, some leaning back with coffee cups, others scrolling through tablets. Their laughter was easy, but I knew how quickly it could turn. Ethan stood at the head, sharp in a tailored suit, his tie a shade too bold. Clara hovered near the projector, her glossy hair catching the light. They looked like royalty preparing for a coronation. Ah, Madison, Ethan said smoothly when he saw me. Glad you could make it. We'll need you to assist with a few slides during my presentation. Assist. My jaw tightened, but I nodded. Of course. I slid into a chair, halfway down the table, the perfect position. Close enough to act, far enough to observe. Janelle wasn't in the room. She'd prepped me until midnight, then vanished back into the shadows. But I could feel her presence in the drive tucked in my bag. The presentation began. Ethan launched into his performance, voice confident, gestures rehearsed. Slide after slide flashed across the screen. Soaring charts, bullet points about strategic pivots, quotes from clients. He was good, too good. The board leaned in, nodding, murmuring approval. Clara clicked each slide with precision, smiling faintly as if she were the hidden architect of it all. And here, Ethan said, gesturing grandly, we see how underperforming accounts were stabilized thanks to targeted strategies. This was a crucial turning point in Q2. My stomach nodded. Those were my accounts, my campaigns, my sleepless nights. And now, Ethan was parading them like trophies. One director, Ms. Alvarez, leaned forward, squinting. Impressive. And you're confident these results are sustainable? Absolutely, Ethan said without hesitation. With Clara's continued support, we anticipate exponential growth. Clara's smile widened. I felt my pulse in my throat. This was it, the perfect moment. I raised my hand slightly. "Excuse me, Ethan? May I add some context for the board?" He glanced at me, annoyance flickering before he smoothed it into charm. "Of course, Madison. Briefly, briefly." He thought I was still small, still obedient. I stood, plugging my laptop into the projector. The screen blinked, then lit up with my dashboard. My voice was steady as I began. "These numbers are impressive," I said, my gaze sweeping the table, "but they've been manipulated." The room shifted, a ripple of murmurs. Ethan's smile faltered. "Manipulated, Miss," Alvarez repeated sharply. "Yes." I clicked. A new slide appeared. Two reports side by side. Here is the revenue log from our CRM system. And here is the version presented by Ethan's team. Notice the discrepancy in account assignment. Work attributed to team performance was actually executed under my campaigns. Here are the timestamps. I zoomed in, highlighting the trail Janelle had uncovered. The board leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Ethan's voice sliced through the tension. "This is outrageous. She doesn't have clearance to access those logs. Clearly, she's misunderstanding the data. I cut him off, flipping to another slide. Here's Clara's sign-off on fabricated supporting documentation. Notice the identical formatting and duplicate metadata. If you check the archive, you'll see these files don't exist outside the versions she submitted." Clara's face drained of color. A low murmur spread around the table. One director exchanged a look with another. I pressed on, my tone clinical, merciless. For months, I was tasked with impossible KPIs, while my results were systematically reassigned to inflate Ethan's performance and justify my termination. What you've just seen is not poor leadership. It's fraud. The word cracked through the room like a whip. Fraud. "Miss." Alvarez's expression hardened. She turned to Ethan. "Is this true?" Ethan's mask slipped for the first time. His jaw clenched, his composure fraying. "This is a witch hunt. She's disgruntled. Clearly she's fabricating." I clicked one last time. The final slide appeared. An email chain between Ethan and Clara, one they thought they'd deleted. "She'll never hit the numbers. But the board loves the idea that I'm pushing her hard. Termination's already in motion." Gasps. The room went dead silent. Clara stammered. That's out of context. But it was too late. The damage was done. "Miss." Alvarez leaned back, her gaze cold. "Mr. Hayes, step outside. Now." Ethan sputtered, but two board members were already rising. Clara looked at him, desperate, but he wouldn't even meet her eyes. I sat back down, slowly, my hands steady on the table. The board whispered among themselves, some shooting me glances I couldn't read. But it didn't matter. I had already won. For the first time in months, I felt taller, lighter. Ethan thought he'd trapped me. Instead, I'd set the boardroom on fire. And he was the one burning. The boardroom emptied like a storm draining out of the sky. Ethan had been escorted to a private chamber, Clara trailing behind like a shadow that had lost its sun. The silence that followed was almost holy. I gathered my laptop, slid the flash drive back into my bag, and forced my breathing steady. My body wanted to collapse, but adrenaline carried me. Every nerve buzzed. I just lit a match and tossed it into a powder keg. "Ms. Cole, Ms." Alvarez said, her voice crisp. "Remain available. There will be proceedings." I inclined my head. "Of course." Then I walked out, not rushed, not hesitant, just steady. The kind of steady that comes when you know the worst is over, and the rest is cleanup. Back at my desk, the office buzzed with whispers. Everyone had heard something. Rumors moved fast, like wildfire through dry brush. Clara's desk sat empty. her perfect blazer still draped over the chair. I slid into my own chair, powered up my laptop, and started working as if nothing had happened. Half an hour later, Janelle appeared, hovering at the edge of my cubicle. Her eyes sparkled with unspoken questions. Well, she whispered. I allowed myself the smallest of smiles. He burned. Her grin widened, sharp and satisfied. She leaned closer. Then it's only a matter of time. Time, as it turned out, was shorter than expected. By Friday, an official statement circulated. Ethan Hayes had been placed on indefinite leave pending investigation. Clara Torres had voluntarily resigned. The language was sanitized, corporate, bloodless. But in the halls of Brightwave, the truth crackled. Clara had been spotted in the parking garage, mascara streaking, muttering into her phone. Ethan had been seen storming out with a box under his arm, security close behind. People glanced at me differently now, some with sympathy, others with awe, a few with fear. I had been the office cautionary tale, the overworked manager doomed to fail. Now, I was the story of the month, the one who had pulled a wolf's skin off in the middle of the pack. Still, I kept my head down. Let the whispers swirl. Let them wonder. 2 weeks later, the board summoned me. The conference room felt different this time. Less intimidating, more deliberate. Ms. Alvarez led the meeting, her expression unreadable. Ms. Cole, she began, your work has been eye-opening. Your evidence revealed serious misconduct. Brightwave does not tolerate fraud. We are grateful you brought this forward. I incline my head, expression neutral. Thank you. We also recognize your contributions. You exceeded expectations under extraordinary circumstances. Effective immediately, we'd like to offer you the Director of Strategy position. For a moment, I said nothing. Inside, 1,000 emotions swirled: vindication, pride, exhaustion. But I let them settle into one cold truth. I had earned this. Every sleepless night, every stolen idea, every scar. I accept, I said simply. Word spread fast. By the end of the day, congratulatory messages flooded my inbox. Some were genuine. Others were thinly veiled attempts to hitch themselves to my rising star. But the best part came 3 days later. I was walking past the lobby when I saw him. Ethan. His tie was loosened, his eyes bloodshot, his once perfect posture slumped. He wasn't supposed to be there. Security hovered nearby, ready to escort him out. But in that split second, our eyes met. The man who had once held my career in his palm looked small, pathetic. He opened his mouth, maybe to argue, maybe to beg. I didn't give him the chance. I kept walking, heels clicking sharp against the marble, not even glancing back. Because there's nothing more savage than indifference. Clara's downfall was quieter. Her resignation email, dripping with faux gratitude, circulated one morning. By afternoon, her LinkedIn read, "Open to work." I heard whispers she tried to blame Ethan, claiming she'd only followed orders. But the board wasn't buying it. Neither were the employees. She'd chosen her side. And when it collapsed, she went down with it. That weekend, I sat at my mother's kitchen table again. She poured tea, her eyes soft. "You did it," she said. I nodded. I did. She studied me for a long moment. "And how does it feel?" I leaned back, considering. Vindication was there. Yes, relief too. But underneath it all was a colder current. "It feels," I said slowly, "like justice." Mom reached across, squeezing my hand. She didn't ask more. She didn't need to. Monday morning, I walked into Brightwave not as prey, not as a survivor, but as someone who had rewritten the rules. My nameplate on the new office door gleamed. Madison Cole, Director of Strategy. I closed the door behind me, sat at the desk, and opened my laptop. There were already a dozen emails waiting, people eager for my attention. But I ignored them for a moment, just staring out the window at the city skyline. Ethan had tried to bury me under impossible numbers. Clara had sharpened the knife. They thought I'd break. Instead, I broke them. And if anyone else ever tried, well, they'd learn soon enough. Because I wasn't the girl who cried in the dark anymore. I was the woman who lit matches in boardrooms. So that's how it ended. My boss thought he could trap me with impossible goals, and my so-called ally sharpened the knife. But when the smoke cleared, they were the ones out the door, and I was sitting in the big chair. Cold. Maybe. Savage? Absolutely. Now tell me, if someone tried to ruin your career like that, what would you do? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more stories where justice comes with a brutal twist, hit like, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next story, it's even darker.